this week's episode of the Imaginary Movie Podcast, a podcast where we chip away at the MCU coalface for, what, fucking 20th year running? It feels like it. It feels like it's been 20 years. This is the 29th movie.
Yeah, welcome to Marvel Enthusiasm Cast. No, it's not about that. So, Dave, listen, if you don't shut up, you won't be invited to the orgy.
Thank God. Fat Russell Crowe orgy. No thanks. So this week, 4 reasons against my strenuous objections, we watched the 29th Marvel movie. So turn this off if you haven't watched all 28 previous movies, because obviously you won't be able to follow the incredibly complex and thoughtful plot. Thor, Love and Thunder. Now, before we do anything else, once again I've been on the phone with the mouse, and I have the list of alternate titles.
Oh, good. I'm excited that you're setting the bar to do this every episode from now forward, and that's very important that you've committed to that. So please take it away.
It's not as good as last week. So obviously this is Thor, Love and Thunder, which is always like an and in a thing. So we've got Thor, Orgies and X's. Was a strong running title. I suspect quite a lot of the orgy stuff got cut in the edit, I think. Yeah,
I'm not sure. Again, it's kind of particularly mouse friendly, but okay, go on. That's fine.
We've got Thor, Buys, Tries and Lats, the motion picture. Yep.
Vivid.
Absolutely, because you betcha for all you thirsty people out there that Chris Hemsworth is in the best shape of his life, and we get a good 360-degree visual of that, and people fainting at his dick. My God, that apparently is mouse friendly, but it felt really on the cusp. No one can have any sexuality apart from depraved fucking hedonism bot.
Russell Crowe, hedonism bot. Russell
like space Greek gods.
Yeah, shut up. That's basically.
So we've got a series of other ones. We've got Thor: Child Soldiers. Thor: Triton Well Worn. That was a strong runner.
I like that one.
We've got Thor: Gore Goes Bananas. We've got Thor 4: Attack of the Clones. That was a bit of a mix up there. There's a whole. Now they own Star Wars. You see, it's fine. They could do whatever they like. My personal favourite, and I really think this captures it, and this should have been the title, is Thor Laughs and Cancer.
Nothing says comedy, action, spectacle, escapism like the slow death of someone with cancer. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Let's jump in straight away, right? Yeah, right. Cancer is depressing as sin. Do you know why I tend to like not any of the fucking recent ones? Why I like some of the Marvel films? It's because it's escapism. This isn't like my life. This isn't like the real world.
You know what? I mean, we shit on the MCU constantly because we're like massive contrarians, and I think the problem I have with them is that they're not exploring like real issues. That's always a thing that comes back to me, is like it feels like we're on a theme park ride. Every single movie is just skimming the surface of actual depth and pathos and truth about the human experience, right? So I'm a fucking sad nerd, and so here comes a movie that has it's actually trying to deal with some of this serious shit. It's trying to deal with, wow, she's got cancer. That's horrible. That's like, what's the impact of how she's going to deal with that? And the problem is this movie's like, they're dropping the C-bomb in there, but they're not interested in engaging with it. So we have this funny, like, Thor being, which I laughed at parts of this. I think it's actually pretty funny for the most part, contrasted with just mere seconds later. Oh, Christ almighty, Natalie Portman has got, the makeup on, and she's lost weight, and it just looks awful, and you're just like, oh my God, this is so bleak. And then move on, because now we're talking about Thor's dick again, and like it's everything's fine. Oh no, shut up. Back in the cancer. We're back to the cancer now.
It's quite
dive in,
Sam.
What's
But
happening?
the root of the problem is that seemingly there's some like arch comic book nerd with their gun to someone's head for the MCU
Oh
because
God.
it's simultaneously like absolutely 100% like derivative of the comics. Like all of these fucking films, none of it's original. Like obviously a lot of the dialogue and the individual plots are original, but actually they've got to stick so closely to all of these like comic book plot lines. So the mighty Thor, the Jane Foster character, that's Natalie Portman, is from the comics. I know, just hear me out here because there is a complaint, right? And she has cancer in the comics, which is depressing and is fucking edgy, but like, spoiler, in the comics, I don't think she actually just fucking dies. I think it's just like an ongoing thing of like this is hurting my health. I might die, but I need to save people. There's something there, but this movie isn't fucking concerned.
And right, in the comics, you have time and space to deal with these bigger issues. You know, there's lots of stuff that happens in comic books that is really well suited to that medium. Just like there's some great stuff that happens in books where, you know, you try and translate that on the screen. Tom Bombadil is a great example of like, get that fucking shit out of my movie. Like, that's fine. It's a great bit in the book, actually. I think it's really fun, and it sets up like the adventure that they're going on really well and all that stuff. But in the film, get it out of my face. And I think this is a good example, as you say, of where the comic book nerds and Kevin Feige or whoever it is that's orchestrating and saying, we need to pull in this massive plot line. And apparently, and I don't know because I'm not a comic book nerd, but apparently loads of other shit as well that gets pulled into this movie. These discordant plot lines that we're just going to mash together.
But I think it's fear of the backlash they got. Do you remember The Last Jedi?
Yes.
Like, I think Disney is afraid of its own shadow when it comes to upsetting like the hardcore fans, because I don't think they actually realise the percentage of the actual movie-going public that constitutes. Yes, 99% of the people online complaining are the hardcore fans. However, that isn't 99% of the people going to see your movie. It's more like 2 to 3%, but every one of them is online bitching and moaning. And they're afraid. They're afraid to upset them, so they've got to stick with it. So you get a good director. Taika Waititi is a good director. He's made lots of good films. He's funny. He's good at comedy. Not in this movie, but generally. Thor Ragnarok was really, really fun, like a breath of fresh air in this franchise. And then you saddle him with the fucking cancer movie.
I know.
Laugh your way out of this one, Taika.
Yeah, which they do, which they try and do, because it is almost incidental to the plot, isn't it? And if you cut it out and you create a Thor and Mighty Thor,
that's inventive.
Yep. Story where those two butt heads, and we have a great platform for like it's Thor's dysfunctional relationships because he's a all powerful god, and let's explore how being an all powerful god does not make you a good boyfriend. Like that would be fun. Do you know what I mean?
There's a movie there.
There's a movie there, and that's not even my best one. I've got a great one that I will I'll tease for podcast listeners who can fast forward. So I think there's lots of stuff there's lots of potential in this movie that we don't need to get ourselves dragged into all this comic book shite. Now, this comes to my contention, which is that comic book nerds have now for me surpassed in loathsomeness Doctor Who nerds, and I think now we're pushing to the point where this fucking cabal, these people on the internet who sit and say, well, actually, blah, 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 and that, as you say, Disney's scared of that, and they get pulled into the fucking bullshit. These people are destroying what could be an independently fun movie. Like that's the thing that I just find it so difficult to get into these films because I haven't watched the 28 other films before this. I don't even know where this sits. I was like, is this after Endgame? Because I haven't seen that. I have no idea. I don't care. And yet we're left like the whole time with all these references, and it damages the individual movies, which I think is where we could have fun with this.
does. I actually think this movie isn't too heinous in terms of you must have watched the previous movies. I think the plot is self-contained enough that if you'd seen the last Thor movie, you would basically know what's going on.
Yeah, I think so. But I think but even
you
just
are
those
right for the MCU in general. I would say.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're
Whole,
right. Definitely.
I think this is okay.
It's not Thor Dark World, is it? We're not going back to the dark days of like, oh my god, which is super serious. Like, at least we're having fun, and this is why to praise the MCU and to praise the director, Thor Ragnarok, a fantastic movie, fun, light, like, but also we're exploring interesting stuff. You know, Thor having to deal with his kind of like, oh, he hasn't got powers, and like, it's really interesting when we get to have these sidebar movies, you know, the ones that aren't part of the main thing. Ant-Man's another good example of like, that's a really fun movie that explores something that's self-contained enough, and then obviously goes off and joins the rest of
the best
gang,
Marvel movies are the movies which are a genre movie starring a Marvel character. So Ant-Man is a heist movie. Thor Ragnarok is a sci-fi adventure starring Thor. You know, it's like, by having that thing, you lean into the genre rather than leaning into the fact that it's a comic movie, and then you start worrying about what I don't understand anything that's going on, and none of this logically makes any sense. And in this movie, there are a lot of times I wonder what's going on.
Yeah, and this is where let's get into this movie now. But just to top that off, this is where I think I would love to explore like multiverses, which is a thing in comics, and you have entire comic lines, you know, issue after issue, where it's never intended to affect the main thing. And I'd love to like just see more of that, so we could just completely detach ourselves from the rest of the canon. And you're right, this film isn't particularly beholden to it, but I think there's still a lot that we could do just to create individual, fun, engaging stories that are self-contained, and that's what I kind of want to see more of. But let's get into this. If you've not seen Thor: Love and Thunder, this movie, Thor enlists the help of Valkyrie, Korg, and ex-girlfriend Jane Foster to fight Gore, the God Butcher, who intends to make the gods extinct. I was shocked to see Christian Bale in this. I was like, is that Christian Bale? Is that Christian Bale? Because he doesn't look like Christian Bale, but then you're like, if you peer closer, you're like, oh yeah, you know, what's that film where he lost loads of weight? Pianist? Oh, it is him. Yeah. Look at that.
It's definitely Christian Bale. Screaming at people, I mean, that's fairly true to
He's
life.
Good in this, isn't he? Do you not think he's good?
He's fine. Like, on the whole, I think the cast is all like sleepwalking. But Bale is certainly doing the most. I think that just goes to Bale being like quite a dedicated maniac.
Good for you.
Good for you.
I love that clip.
So, number one on your like plot description there, right? So, Gore the God Butcher is going to kill all the gods, and I'm like,
yeah.
Gore the billionaire butcher, and I'm like, right, so he's out there solving a problem. What are we doing?
Oh no, the billionaires.
Because the gods we meet are fucking dicks.
Yeah.
They should be murdered.
It's always a funny thing when you're watching a film and you're like, look at this great bad guy, and he's really imposing, and it's like, wow, and you're like thinking, I kind of agree with him though. It sometimes kind of undermines, I think, maybe the point of the movie, doesn't it? When you're thinking from the start, this guy's daughter it's actually quite a sad thing, you know, dying in the desert, and he's like, it's like, Jesus, he said bury his daughter in the desert, and then he goes and sees the god, and this is where I think straight away I was my antenna for what this movie was fucking swinging wildly, because I'm like, so really stark opening. Interestingly, no opening credits, nothing, no like a Disney movie. It's literally press play, boom, you're in the desert with Christian Bale. Daughter's dead. He finds the oasis. I mean, the start of it is so stark and horrible. And then we're like, bam, here's a god. And he he's just a fucking laugh a minute, and these little creatures, little fairies, woo, and he's just mocking this guy, and I just think straight away, like tonally, where are we at? What is the tone here? Because we don't get to. I think this is the first sign of a problem. When you're like, oh, this poor Christian Bale guy, and then the movie just shits on his face, and then asks you to dislike him because he's the baddie, and you're like, again, let's kill all billionaires, 100%. Let's do it. Let's do it right now. Why aren't we doing this right now?
It's the thing in the movie of like everyone's just reacting to things that each other are doing. So you can go to sleep for a second, Sam. But the Bifrost is a plot contrivance in this movie that I'm kind of bored of. We had this in the first movie, and it's like the magical rainbow road that they used to teleport, except that Thor uses the lightning bolt to do it occasionally, and every other character seems to have their own version of this. So it's like, but he needs the Bifrost to get to the place where he can make one wish, and I'm like, that's a lot of fucking. You're asking me to like just like right. So Gore kidnaps all these children, and I'm like, so that he can lure Thor to this place to get the axe to use the Bifrost, and I'm like, but he doesn't hurt any of the children, of course.
Yeah. I don't think I could particularly explain the plot to you, like if we.
But he's so conniving and genius, Sam, that he's figured all this out. He's kidnapped these children so he can lure Thor to the dark place, to the grey place where he's got all of his weird like hentai tentacles, and he's got all of that, and he's so clever. And then in his lair, which is on the fucking outskirts of this place, he's got loads of drawings of the Bifrost so that they can figure it out before they meet him, so that we can have a cool fight scene. And I'm like, it's like me, Sam, luring you into somewhere to murder you, but there's a 3-mile walk to get there, and I've just painted scenes of me murdering you on every wall that you pass. It's
Turn back.
The subtlety of it is just non-existent. It's like, that's just bad filmmaking. Like, it's just poor. I will say, visually, I think all of this works, but like logically, it offends me deeply.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Like, I'll come back to visuals in a second, but like, I think, like, I sometimes I wonder if I am just completely stupid and I don't understand the things that are happening in front of me, and that is absolutely the case in many, many regards. But when it comes to movies, like, I think sometimes I'm sitting there watching it, I'm going, like, what's happening? You know what? Like, why is Christian Bale's character doing this? And I understand that he got mocked by a god that he buried his daughter for, basically, and they were sat in the desert.
I understand it, Sam, because the gods are a corrupt ruling class who literally are just letting everyone else starve and die, and they're not really interested. I mean.
Well, they have orgies in the sky. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, they have space orgies.
Yeah, Elon Musk.
So actually, it was kind of like, eat the fucking
But this
rich,
film
right?
isn't going for that.
Cool.
This film isn't.
No, this film isn't aware of that, Sam, because it hasn't quite figured out the allegory thing. Like, it hasn't quite figured out that you can't help but compare things in films to things in reality. So it's like, oh, but it's gore and this is God butcher and killing gods is wrong, and I'm like. All the evidence you're showing me is that these fuckers need to go. Yeah,
exactly.
The gods,
just like the billionaires.
Apart from there's a few funny bits, but like ultimately, it's literally just this decadent fucking Greek, like Greco-Roman sort of court with all these guys being like, literally they're organising an orgy, and I'm like, great. That's hilarious.
Right,
but like,
okay, I'm with you.
Maybe give me a reason why. Maybe give me a reason why we're thinking, oh, Gore, you're such a bad guy. Maybe show him killing someone that we like.
But that's exactly my point, because at the start of the movie, he's in, what his god has pissed him off, fine. But then he kind of takes it upon himself to destroy all the gods. And goes back to our comic book nerd thing, is that, obviously in the comics, He's a great, and if we had a comic book nerd with us, they'd be like, guys. No, actually, it's a really great plot line because what happens is that blah 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 blah, and that's fine. And we'd go, wow, that is interesting. But the problem is that the film's not showing us that. But it might be a really good story, and I'm sure we've got listeners who are screaming at their,
I'm not sure
AirPods.
we have listeners.
No, maybe not. But we might have someone going, yeah, but genuinely, in the comics, it is a good allegory about the privileged elite who have orgies in the sky, and that's an interesting thing. And they are but it's like, okay, I'm with you. It's a good interpretation, but the film is not showing us that. The film does not show us from the beginning, and I don't think it truly gives us any real motivation for Christian Bale's character, other than his daughter's dead. Which, by the way, fast forward to the end of the movie, it just shits the bed and is like, yeah, he's fine, actually. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah, we're undoing that because it's Marvel.
But because we need to have a save the cat moment,
The film also suffers because it's an MCU film, and it's like anything else like this, where Thor's got to go and save the children, fine. And, Jane Foster's
kill
going to
these
go with
kids,
him.
man.
Okay, fine. And Valkyrie, because we liked her from Ragnarok, great. Tessa Thompson's getting a paycheck, fantastic. I'm all for that. But it kind of begs the question of, so the Natalie Portman's, sacrifice at the end of the movie, she comes to help Thor, and then she dies, and I'm like, don't you have, a whole team, a well-established team of dozens and dozens of characters from the previous movies that you could have called from Norway and been like, can you come and help me defeat the God Butcher? It never really establishes why it's just Thor and the woman with cancer who will die if she doesn't stay in the hospital saving the day. You couldn't get the Falcon. Is he too busy trying to get fucking bank loans? You couldn't get the Winter Soldier. What's he doing? Fucking running a nightclub or something? Ant-Man? Fucking whoever's in the Iron Man suit nowadays? Nobody was available. Nobody was fucking available.
That's exactly so true. Yeah, because
that's fine. I can suspend that disbelief, but it just robs the sacrifice at the end of any true meaning because it's not self-contained. Because we're fucking around going to whatever the fucking orgy city's called in space, the space orgy city. We go to there for literally no reason other than the Russell Crowe's a fat piece of shit joke, which is fine. We go to there, we see Chris Hemsworth's rocking bod. And then we're back in Norway again. It's like, we've already been here. We've already been to Norway. Why are we coming back to go away again? This is not how a road movie works.
Yeah, I know. And I think when you combine all of this, you bring it all together, right? And especially the start of the movie where it's going for the same tone as Ragnarok. So you've got all this kind of questions about the plot. And largely, Ragnarok is kind of like, well, whatever, here we go, spectacle, and you're fine with that. You're fine with it because I think it doesn't invite all of these questions in the same way that this movie does. I think Ragnarok
because
and even Guardians
in imaginary self-contained space it's in Asgard or in fucking whatever the garbage planet is.
It's a self-contained story, and that gives us enough to be able to be like, to shut off the part of our brain that's going, what? Like, exactly, where is Iron Man? Where's the end of the universe?
The last movie that we had with Thor. Why couldn't he show up?
The end, because obviously Mark Ruffalo is busy, and they didn't, and it feels like that we get a lot of that. We've got Hemsworth, but Natalie Portman's not in it that much. Sarsgaard stuff literally phones it in over the video phone, so there's all of these bits where they're just like, I think we're straining the limits of what's like the production could bring together, and that's that's fine, but then just write your story so it matches that, and that's what I think is a bit of a problem. So we mentioned Crow, who is funny. It's kind of funny, but it's funny because it's Russell Crowe, a fat Russell Crowe doing an accent in a similar gladiator-esque bodysuit, isn't it? And this comes to my thing of like a lot of these movies are, oh look, it's that guy, and that makes me feel safe because I recognise someone in the same way that they used it. They're clearly doing the exact same thing. They used it with Jurassic Park man, Life Finds a Way. What's his name? Oh, come on, brain.
My brain isn't working either.
Okay, well, Life Finds...
I know what you mean. It's a spectacle of let's get this A-list celebrity in. But in the scene, it doesn't really work because it's this room with thousands of people in it, and two of them are talking, Russell Crowe and Chris Hemsworth, and that's it. And it's like, well, and that's a 40-minute scene, and then we get the silly glitter fight, and they don't
Jeff
even
Goldblum.
kill him. Jeff Goldblum. And also, I don't think, because at least Jeff Goldblum in the last movie is like he is an antagonist within the movie. He's kidnapped Thor and he's trying to hold him hostage and he wants to keep the Hulk there. Like, there is an antagonistic relationship there, and he's the bad guy, and he's also a better actor than Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's just given more as well.
No,
like,
but he's not.
In this, Russell Crowe's job is to stand on this dais, joke about orgies, because that's fine. You can joke about orgies in a Marvel movie, but God forbid there's any sexuality. But you can joke about orgies.
Yeah.
To do that, and then to fucking like just stand there and be fat and be doing this accent. He has nothing to do in this movie. No relevance to the plot whatsoever.
It was clearly a 1 or 2 day shoot, wasn't it? And this is the other thing as well. You can see the limits of the production.
This feels like this take feels like a wanna. when it's just Russell Crowe, that feels like a right. We got it, Russell. Great.
Mr. Crowe does not do reshoots. Like, that's the
not
but
for
Jeff
fucking Marvel movies.
Jeff Goldblum, though, right? He in Ragnarok, he's doing pretty much the exact same thing. He's playing him. He's playing himself. He's playing that. I'm Jeff Goldblum. Woo. Like, he's doing the act, and it's entertaining, and you are really going, isn't it funny to have Jeff Goldblum, the actor, in this Marvel movie? In this Thor universe. I don't even know what his name is. It doesn't matter. It's Jeff Goldblum.
I think he's just like not the master, but
who gives a fuck
like that.
So
but it's fine. No, but I would contend that at least Jeff Goldblum is like an impactful character in that movie who affects the plot of what's happening.
100%, and this is why I'm saying that a lot of the stunt casting, like, it can work sometimes, and it can be fun, and we can enjoy it for that. But you also need to, as you say, create a relevant stuff for the character to do. And this scene is a prime example of a 2-hour movie where you could just cut out, and maybe they go to the gods and say, hey, you fuckers, the bad guy's coming for you, and you need to do something about it. And they go, piss off, get lost, Thor, you're a loser. And then he says, fine, see you later. And that's a 2-minute scene, you know what I mean? Like, if you want it in there, I suppose. But I think it's a good example of all the way through this movie. There's places, there's things that you could excise from the edit, and that to me is the biggest issue with this movie. Is it's clearly just overstuffed, and it needs a good edit. It needs to be reduced down.
This is reshoots, and how you are right. The edit is important. But things like so I don't know whether you picked up on it, but Korg and the voiceover, that's all Taika Waititi, that's the director. Yeah, which is fine, but and he was funny as like a 1 or 2 scene character. It's kind of a bit indulgent to have you be in the whole movie. I call it the Tarantino effect. Get out of your own movie, mate. You're the director. You have a chair. Go and sit in it and do your job.
You can be a background actor. You can maybe even have one line where you say,
it's distracting.
It is.
Every time Quentin Tarantino pops up to tell me about feet, I'm like, listen, you're a great filmmaker. I respect you. Don't want to look at you or hear from you. Right? Make a movie. That's how we'll communicate. And Waititi's a good director and a good actor as well. I don't know if you saw What We Do in Shadows.
Yes, I have to know. Yeah,
he's a great. That's his big sort of like breakout thing, and he's great in that movie. And it's directed really well as well. And he's obviously really talented. He's made a lot of really, really funny, edgy movies. And in this, it's just like the voiceover. It feels like they were like, well, how can we fix this? All right, let's put a voiceover in. Let's have more Korg. Let's have more cutaways to things Korg is doing, and then that will make it funnier and people, and it doesn't really fix it.
No. Okay, right. Let's talk about some positives, because there are. I had fun in this movie for some bits. I know, it's okay. It's okay, we can do this. Because I think we've moaned about this movie, and I think if you're listening to this, listener, and you're thinking, oh yeah, but I like these films. I totally agree with you. I loved Ragnarok. It was a real oh wow, maybe there are some good post-Guardians movies for me.
You keep saying, I wasn't going to mention, you keep saying Ragnarok, and I don't know why.
Well, what is it?
Ragnarok.
Okay.
There's an O in there. It's fine. It's fine. It's just your folksy rural charm.
I'm gonna reject that reality and substitute my own.
Just as long as we've addressed it. I don't want the nerds getting at us on Twitter if we even still have a Twitter.
Fucking tweet at me, please. Like, comment, subscribe with your anger. So in Ragnarok,
on YouTube, please, God.
Ragnarok. I'm trying. They have this great 80s music vibe, right? And I think this is something that works really, really well in this movie. In the same way that it worked in Ragnarok, because you end up you like the start bit where Thor comes in and he's kicking ass and he's wearing his thing and he destroys the palace, and it's really funny, and I think there's a lot of moments in this where I was laughing.
It is good, and I think the action's stupid. I watched this movie in sort of two parts, so bonk. I watched this movie in two parts, so I watched the first sort of 2/3 of it, and then bitched and moaned with you while you watched it, and then I watched the ending again. I actually think the ending battle is visually quite appealing. I think that they really it's something that they didn't figure out in the first one, certainly in Dark World, certainly. They've really kind of nailed the thunder CGI. The blue helps, and they've really nailed how to get across it's a god of thunder and he uses thunder and this is how it works. I think they've really done a good job there. The visual effects are really, really good. That fight, because it's just children versus CGI and Thor versus the pianist Christian Bale. It's not really
we're staying positive. Remember, we're staying positive for this segment.
Because it's that, my brain isn't why is nobody getting hurt? Why is nobody being killed? It's more of a it's more like a wrestling match almost, isn't it? And it's a bit less slicey limmy and a bit more just sort of it's a bit more cathartic in that way. So it's a good fight scene generally. I like a lot of the other action in this movie. I really fucking despise the fight scene with Russell Crowe, but again, let's put that to the side for now. But yeah, visually, I think this is quite a cool movie. So that's a plus, and obviously that's Disney. They've got the money. They don't really turn out bad looking movies, really.
Yeah, and I think generally the fighting's entertaining enough. It doesn't go on too long, which I think is a bit of a problem with the rest of the MCU.
Sometimes it goes on for too long.
But most of the time, yeah, you're right. But there's a lot of this. Other things we've already mentioned Bale. I think he's actually, when he's on set for the 3.5 days that he was, I want more of that. He's genuinely scary, and the costume, makeup and costume have done a fantastic job of he looks, with his rotting teeth and his eyes, he looks genuinely quite harrowing.
He should be like a puppet master villain. He should be a giving speeches and acting, because I just don't think Bale's great at the action. You know what I mean? I think he's fine. But it's all CGI nonsense. But let's find a way to have Christian Bale, who is a great, impactful, emotional actor, who will come and do a very impassioned performance of whatever we want him to do. Let's write him some stuff, and let's have him and Thor argue, maybe some situation where they can't, they have to stop battering each other for 5 minutes and have a philosophical conversation where Gore basically, and we get a bit of that, but give me more of that, because when Christian Bale is replaced by a stunt double, it's then well, what are we doing? Why are we paid for Christian Bale to watch a stunt double fight with fucking Chris Hemsworth's stunt double in a CGI chamber?
I'll tell you why, because Christian Bale...
It's holodeck! It's all fucking holodeck!
Christian Bale is too emaciated to do his own stunts. Is the problem, because Jesus,
Quite
he's
emaciated in this,
he's a machine.
I worry about his rapid health weight gain and loss.
Come on, Christian. Come on, Seaman. You can't do that. Right. So other things I enjoyed.
Seaman.
We're personal friends. He likes that. So the other things that I enjoyed is give me more Damonsworth. Give me more Matt Damon, Liam Hemsworth, and the guy from Jurassic Park. Like, I want to see the entire of the Thor universe reenacted by them on stage. Please, I find that so funny. Now, earlier I said this fucking stunt casting with Crow is atrocious. This was atrocious stunt casting in the first one. It's even more shit-eating now. But I don't care. I think this is a great, great joke. And if I was rich and famous, I would insist on being in movies and not get paid. I don't want to get paid. It's fine. I've got my money. I don't want to get paid. I just want to be in your movie.
Sam, the union insists you get paid, so you'd have to be paid something.
I'd be paid something, but I'll take it. It's fine. I just want to be in your movie just for like 30 seconds, and I want people to go, was that Sam Jordan? That's weird. Like, he's not even credited. Why is he in this? And then it just be. And I think that works really well with Matt Damon and then they get his brother. They get his actual brother to play him. I think that is funny as shit. And then that's probably where the extent of the joke ends. is at that point. But I just think there's a lot of that lightness which I think works really well. And I'm running out of positive things to say about
I like
this movie
Natalie
now.
Portman, and that's a complex statement because, it's not on the face of it. I really like her in generally most things because she's pretty good. And I will say is one of the more choosy actors in Hollywood, I would say, in her later career.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't appear in a lot of schlocky shit. Like, this is only the third one of these she's been in because she was like, nah, after that.
She intelligently said, absolutely not. To post.
Now, obviously, they did the whole dump truck of money thing, and she's only human after all. So that's fine. I like her, and I think she's pretty good in this movie, and I kind of like the character. I like the what I did like in this movie was because what always rang false in the earlier movies, and it's always the problem, isn't it? Because like you said earlier, like the actual dynamic of like your boyfriend's a superhero, like that probably makes him quite a shitty individual to like, I bet the sex is great, but apart from that, like,
and bone breaking
looks like Chris Hemsworth. Yeah. But like otherwise, and you're never going to miss a fucking plane or a train ever again, are you? Or maybe you miss all of them, whatever. But apart from that, there's something to be explored in that, isn't there? Of like, so in this movie, when she becomes Mighty Thor, and it's suddenly like this, suddenly they're on equal footing again, and Thor has to maybe come to terms with the fact that she's kind of usurped some of his identity, and then she comes to terms with the fact that, this is what it's like to be a superhero, this is what it's like to have the responsibility, and there really is something to be explored there, and the kind of movie kind of touches on it, and we get a bit of it, not anything particularly deep or thought-provoking, but like, I like the idea of that, and I think that Portman's doing like a reasonably good job. I'm not sure every actor could do the Marvel like superhero turn, and obviously a lot of them fucking have, because we've made over 30 of these movies now. But I like Natalie Portman. I like her in this, and Hemsworth as well. Generally, actually, I think is pretty good in these movies. Although he's asleep for vast portions of this film.
Well, as are a lot of the actors, and you can kind of feel the CG-ness of this mustn't help the ability of actors just to like get in the zone. It really does have an impact, doesn't it? I think. And they're all very professional. It's very professional, I think, the performances in this, but that's probably where it ends. And that's, I don't know, it's not Shakespeare, is it? So what do you want?
I think if I had to rank them, I would say Christian Bale's doing the most. Then it's probably Hemsworth, because it's his movies in most scenes. Then it's Portman. Tessa Thompson is like... halfway through the movie, you have a scene where she's like, I think I've lost a kidney. I'm like... Do you want to emote maybe any of these lines, Tessa Thompson? Has the check already cleared? Is it sat in your account? Have they already told you you're not going to be in any more of these movies?
It's such a weird thing. I mean, her character is not particularly inspiring either, and in like
it's a typical thing where they couldn't figure out what to do with it because she was good in Ragnarok. I think she really was.
So hold on. So they made her a tour guide. What?
Literally, and then it's like, and then she's in the movie, but she hasn't really got anything to do. We don't get any characterization. You have Korg joking, and he's like, "Oh yeah, but then all your mates died, and that was sad." And she's like, "Yeah," and that's the fucking character development, like literally verbatim the character development in this movie.
Yeah,
and then she's out of the movie for the final act, and she's like, "Don't die," and Thor's like, "All right, see you later."
Yeah,
it's bizarre.
So my biggest. We've touched on it, but my biggest thing I think is the editing in this. I think somewhere there's a movie here about, like, if you were going to rewrite it, you'd say, okay, maybe we make it about Thor's mortality. You know, Thor is he's a god, he can do whatever he wants, and we get to revel in that in Ragnarok, and we get to revel in that in the first half of this movie, where it's like he's just fucking kicking ass, and it's the 80s and it's 80s music and Guns N' Roses and everything's fun and light and brilliant, blah 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 blah. And then we maybe get, if you want to keep the cancer scene in there, you can have that, but you can also have it as like, okay, so Natalie Portman's got cancer, which is really sad, and Thor now has to kind of like deal with that, but he also has to deal with the fact that he can't,
being powerful and powerless at the same time.
Yeah, he can't control it, which is
there's something to be explored there. There really is, but the movie isn't really interested.
The movie's not bothered. Now, and I think
not once does anyone suggest magic or fucking space magic or space cures or anything.
They can
call in Tony Stark, but he's dead.
They can literally
call in Bruce Banner, get the Hulk on it. Fucking somebody.
They can go back in time. They can do whatever they want.
We can go back. We can have the whole fucking multiverse thing from all of these movies. Doctor Strange puppets his own fucking dead corpse from a different timeline.
Yeah.
In a dream sequence.
Hey, she
in a movie that came out the year before this, and that's fine.
Let me just call. Go down to S Strange. Call him. Give him a ring. See what you can do. You know,
hey, mate, you're a magician. Can you cure cancer or what?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, mate. Of course we can. We just keep it to ourselves because we're the elite. We're
the
elite
billionaires. Exactly. Yeah.
You tell me these gods can cure cancer. Russell Crowe's got the cure for cancer right there.
Yeah, he doesn't give a fuck. He's not. So, right, so you could have...
They've obviously cured STDs if they're having all these orgies. It's fine, they've cured everything, baby.
You could have all of this, right? And I actually think that this is maybe what they were going for. And so I think the failure of this movie, I think it's the editing. I think the editing is so slapshot. There's 4 editors credited on this movie, which is never a good sign.
I wonder which one is responsible for the smash cut to a really non-funny joke after every single moment of seriousness in this movie.
Well, a prime
cancer,
example.
she's dying. Smash cut to the goats, and you're like, oh, these fucking goats again. Can we not? Just a beat, just a black screen, just for 4 frames, just so we can let the seriousness of dying of cancer sink in.
I think there's so much of that. I think it reminds me of Thelma Shoemaker, who is the editor for Scorsese, right? Obviously a fucking genius, and is so critical to like the role of Scorsese movies being incredible, is because she knows when to cut, she knows when to freeze frame. Goodfellas is a great example of just a perfectly edited movie. It could be a 14-hour bore, which is exactly what The Irishman was, which she also edited, but obviously couldn't restrain.
I've got PTSD from The Irishman.
Couldn't restrain Scorsese. But she said, right, there's a good quote. She says, films these days, they ask you to believe stuff, but they don't make you believe it. And I think that's where the problem is in this movie, is that we're already asking a huge amount of suspension of disbelief. We're already asking the audience to be like, we've got gods, we've got Thor, we've got all of these crazy shit, which most people are bought into, and that's fine. But then we're dropping in these like random discordant themes, like someone having cancer, and the kids watching their dads die, like at the end of the movie, which we get to see, which is just great fun. And we're not giving, I don't think, the audience the time, and like, I mean, literally the frames on screen to process this. And my prime 2 seconds, sorry.
To another... Go on.
Just to finish the point. There's the worst example of this is when Natalie Portman tells Thor that she's got cancer, and she literally says, "I've got cancer," and then seconds later she's like, "Oh no, never mind. No, I didn't say that. I didn't say it. I take it back. I take it back." And it's like, if you actually maybe lingered, and I mean literally just stayed on the screen, and we get to see the emotions that Thor goes through because he's found out his girlfriend's seriously ill, and we get to see Hemsworth, who can clearly act, actually like show us his emotion of what's happening. And I just mean slow the film down, for 3 or 4 minutes. Then maybe this would be actually impactful.
Yeah, you're right. But obviously the movie, for some executive, it says, right, no, I want more of Chris Hemsworth talking to his axe or talking to his hammer because one of them's getting jealous of the other one. And I'm thinking, we've already got 4 main characters in this movie, and now the fucking axe and the hammer are getting scenes, like emotional scenes with Hemsworth. And I'm like, and that's a joke that they thought was really funny in one of the previous movies. I think one of the Endgame or something. He has the hammer and the axe in that. And like Steve Rogers can lift the hammer, and he's jealous of that, and they obviously decided that's the funniest shit in the world because this whole movie is predicated on Thor being like, "That's my hammer, but that's my hammer." It's like, oh my fucking lord, I can't.
But all of this just goes to the point that if we don't let our audience, if we don't give the audience time and space to actually experience the emotions that the character's experiencing, then what we're going to be left with is like this kind of like facsimile of what's happening. When, I'm not really understanding. I'm not really connecting with the seriousness of this. And when eventually Natalie Portman dies, oh, that's a shame. That is the extent of my emotional attachment, because we're not given any of the tools. We're not given any of the time and space to process what is actually going to happen, which is, well, what's the impact on this for Thor? What's he going to feel? Even if we just discount Natalie Portman's character for a second, how is he going to go on afterwards? We're given none of that, because boom, we're moving on now, and Thor's a dad god now. Oh, but he's an uncle. She calls him uncle. Shut up.
The
move
upshot
on.
of it is, Sam, is that Christian Bale trades his righteous crusade against billionaires, gods, space gods. He trades that for his daughter being a space god, and it's kind of like, oh well, if my daughter could be rich, and therefore we could be, not rich, but space gods. And it's just a weird message for the end of the movie. Is like, yes, it's a child, fine, like obviously compassion and things like that. But the whole upshot of the movie is, we'll take care of your child. You're not a bad guy after all. You've been killing and murdering throughout this whole movie. You kidnapped a bunch of kids like the child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, but you're okay, really. I'm now going to raise your daughter, but don't worry, she's not going to go to school or anything. We're going to go and fucking murder aliens because that's the absolute highest emotional level the fucking 13-year-olds that made this movie can imagine is everyone should aspire to going and murdering fucking aliens. I tell you one more thing I liked, actually, is that Hemsworth and this kid have pretty good chemistry, there's a reason for that, because that's his actual daughter. I know, nepotism. I summon thee.
Are you joking?
Nope.
Oh God. The end of this movie, it really pissed me off, to be honest. I went from the start of the film being like, cool, more Thor Ragnarok. Excellent. That's great. Let's enjoy it. And then it's like, okay, we've got the cancer plot. And again, I'm thinking through, I'm trying to be analytical. I'm trying to be critical in a productive sense and saying, okay, well, maybe if we could just reposition it, maybe it's about the edit that just didn't connect and they were trying to do too much humor. They didn't want their audience to feel things because it's upsetting, and so they wanted to keep moving. I'm doing my best to try and give this movie a bit of slack, right? And then the end of this movie, when they give us the save the cat for Christian Bale's character, who has been at the start of the movie was trying to be a good guy, oh, it's a shame if he's sad. And then he's going around killing gods, which we don't really get to see that much of either. I'd like to see more of the impact of him going around killing these gods a little bit more in detail. And then what we're left with is at the end of the movie, he kind of just gives all that up for reasons. And the reason being that, okay, I'm going to bring my daughter back to life, which is totally manipulative of Thor to say to him, by the way. Totally like, oh yeah, you could use your one wish on this fucking horrible plot device.
Wish for 5 more wishes, man.
Yeah, but why would you?
Did you not read the rule book? It is manipulative, but it's kind of like it detracts from the fact that they have a conversation about it, and Portman's like, no, we'll look after your daughter. She'd be alone. No, we'll look after her. That could work if Bale basically sees Thor turn his back and say, right, kill all the gods, don't give a shit. My girlfriend's dying, and that actually is something that's more important to me in this second than you killing all the gods. And then turns away. But, you wouldn't have to then have a conversation where you say all of that like they literally do in the movie. And he goes off with Natalie Portman, and we get a scene with them. And then we pan back to Gore, and we don't have say anything. He just makes his wish, his daughter appears, and he dies. And then you have another character say, oh, I think he must have decided at the end that was what he wanted, rather than, all this death and stuff. And maybe you say, oh, well, the sword was possessing him. But then you can have a self-contained scene with Thor and Natalie Portman where they have to turn to the guy who's fucking basically murdered this woman, in essence, and go, oh, it's all right, bro. We forgive you. Let's waste our precious last few seconds. We forgive you, Christian Bale. It's bizarre.
It's bizarre, and it's
bit
also
heavy-handed.
Yeah, and you're left basically with the main bad guy with a save the cat moment that turns into, I'm gonna bring my daughter back to life and then subject her to watching me die, and you're now gonna move in with this random dude who, again, the film says they have the voiceover from Korg saying, you turn into Dad God. And then she calls him Uncle Thor. And I'm like,
I think the Dad God
away.
joke is literally just like somebody thought that would be like a
I know.
term.
I totally get it, right? I get, but you just think that, I think that's the type of attention to detail that's just lacking. Where you're like, well, either he's a Dad God or he's a Uncle God. And you know what I mean? Like, I know it's a small thing, but I just think it really represents a lot of the problem of, like, this little girl is fucking Hemsworth's daughter, which is just horrific.
Nepotism! Oh, 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 oh.
In the face. Like, she's just completely, she's not a character. She's just a vessel for Thor to go through and all. Because notice she has zero response to her dad dying. She just sits there emotionless because she's obviously not a fucking actor, because now I learn that she's Hemsworth's daughter. She doesn't have any response. She's just got that impassive face on, completely and utterly nonchalant, watching her dad die. And I think, like, that is a prime thing of, like, this movie isn't actually trying to tell a story about this. It's just trying to facilitate.
Portman and Waititi and Bale's children all appear in this film as well, as some of the kidnapped children.
Great stuff. Excellent.
Nepotism!
Stop doing that. Stop doing that.
I see the waveform on it. It's going to totally break the sound on the podcast.
Absolutely disgusting. I apologise for your eardrums. The Imaginary Movie Podcast makes no... we're not be held liable for your audio.
It just really makes me laugh. I don't know what I'm... What
no, we shouldn't make you laugh.
I'm not doing
it's bad audio production, and we reject that on this podcast. God damn it.
But yeah, it's just... I don't know why I'm surprised. It's the 29th Marvel movie. There's probably like 4 or maybe 5 that are actually good.
In
out
what,
of
like,
29.
About 12 years, Is it 12
Well,
years?
it's why, Sam. It's been. I think Iron Man was 2008, so it's been 15 years.
50, but even that is a
But
lot.
it's one of the reasons why some of the TV shows are good, because you do get the space, like WandaVision, which we liked. You do get the space to be a bit more experimental and to actually explore some of the emotional things that you don't have time to explore in a film. Like, especially those Avenger films are just fucking like 4 hours of wall-to-wall carnage because you've got 1,500 characters in it. But like, we seem to be in a lull at the minute where there aren't any of the Marvel shows on. None of them have come out in a while, and it's kind of like maybe that's how I prefer to continue to explore these stories. It's like, let's get them for a few extra days. You probably filmed 15 hours of like usable footage for this movie. Like, just make it a limited series. You can have all of this, and maybe like give me a beat to fucking enjoy the scene or see someone act without these screaming goats or Russell Crowe talking about orgies.
The goats. Oh my god.
The fucking goats. And did you watch the 2 post-credit scenes? Obviously,
I absolutely didn't. I didn't even see the fucking directed by title card, Dave. I was so turned off by this movie at the end. And you know what? Like, when you all the stuff you talk about is so spot on, because there's so many interesting stories we could be exploring here. You know, WandaVision was unique because, well, the first like 4 episodes anyway were unique because we were like, oh, we're gonna use the Marvel backdrop and a relatively small character to explore like TV. Like, we're gonna channel reality and truth and like the experiences of the world into actually telling a unique new story. And then the series turned into the usual punch fight, fucking power scale and bollocks.
It's just the Marvel thing, isn't it?
Blah, 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 blah.
Punch fight. Let's have a punch fight. Oh, don't get me started on that.
All
of these
that.
like ancient Asgardian gods with their swords, yet no one fucking bleeds a drop of blood in this entire movie.
No one breaks a bone. Everyone just gets knocked around and gets up again like they're fucking ragdolls. And it's
no one even gives anyone a lusty look in this movie, Sam, because that isn't okay. Russell Crowe can talk about orgies because he's portrayed as someone no one would want to have sex with, and that's fine. Disgusting fat people can have orgies. That's fine. Everyone else is a Ken doll.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas actually watching Thor and She-Thor just go for it. Just absolutely just fantastic.
Subscribe.
I would watch that. Make that for me, Marvel. I dare you.
Unfortunately, Sam, Disney just don't seem interested. It's funny, isn't it, that the company that brought us Pretty Woman, that charming hooker rom-com, and all of these like what's their dodgy adult movie? Not adult movie, but like grown-up movie.
Touchstone Pictures.
Touchstone Pictures has released some really like sexual movies. Great.
It's a Disney movie.
They've decided now that like, well, that's not okay. There's no sexuality in anything, and it's like, I mean, there is in life though, in the world which we all live in.
We're not interested in the human experience. We're interested in thinly veiled fucking macho allegories for, like nothing's there.
Or copy-pasted LGBTQ representation with Korg in this movie. There's a big something of a backlash because they'd said when they were making this movie that it was going to be a bit more representative of queer characters than typically Marvel movies are, because they want to make money in China. That's the simple, like, that's the literal reason. Like, and that's the reason for a lot of the lack of sexuality and stuff in these movies, is because they want to make money in China, and if there's gay characters in it, it's not going to make money in China, and that's a bottom line thing. But so they have you might have blinked and missed it. They have the scene with Korg where it's like, well, all Korg people, they're all blokes and they all love each other, and that's great. But it's kind of like just tacked on at the end as like as a reshoot to be like appease people, and it's like, well, no, just make it representative. Oh, there's a galaxy of gods, but they're all straight. Don't worry about that. No one's gay. It's fine. We're all straight. Russell Crowe's orgy. It's all hetero love. It's fine. Don't worry about it, China.
Calm down, everyone. Don't get worked up. It's fine.
It's just It's just cowardly as well. Like today's day and age, like just make a movie that's representative of the people who, are going to see it, and then that'll be fine. And don't worry too much about like.
But they don't give a fuck. Look at Star Wars. Look at cutting out Finn's character. No,
Campo.
well that as well. No, yeah, but also like Finn, they just said, oh no, he's not in the movie anymore. Fuck him, because obviously they want people of color in a movie. Why would they want that? Why would anyone want that?
Some things stay the same.
Jesus,
America.
Christ. Fuck. Well, no, but a lot of it's China. A lot of it is China, and the big money that is just not interested in Star Wars movies. But that's not going to let them stop Disney from debasing themselves and setting back.
The problem is, it's also not going to stop Disney continuing to acquire like every stage of production and distribution, and then like choking the fucking life and creativity out of everything, and everything will just be a straight adaptation of a comic book or a book or another movie that Disney owns forever and ever and ever and ever. I can't wait for the 2020 version of The Lion King in the real life one, or the fucking Aladdin, or any of the other heinous live action animated movies they've done.
Just think about this. We are going to get probably in 15 years, 20 years maybe, we're going to get remakes of all these fucking MCU movies. It's going to happen. It's going to happen because the kids now, my kids are growing up in this. They know who every single superhero is, and they're going to be prime beef for these corporations.
They are making another Fantastic Four movie.
Oh,
they are rebooting the Fantastic Four.
The serial losers of the superhero
within the MCU
movie.
They've done this, and it's not even as bad as Spider-Man, but there was the one with Chris Evans, confusingly, the Chris Evans Fantastic Four film.
Yeah.
And then there were those
Fantastic Four, the Winter
with...
Soldier.
It's a Winter Soldier. And there was that heinous one with...
the Autumn Soldier.
The Autumn Soldier. The Fall Soldier. I can't remember his name. He was in Whiplash. The guy out of Whiplash. He was Reed Richards in that other heinous reboot that wasn't good. And it's like... maybe let's put some money into making stuff that hasn't already proven conclusively that it won't make money at the box office. What do I know? Especially
because this movie. I tell you what, you know nothing, Jon Snow, because this movie made $760 million off a 250 budget. This movie cost 250 million quid, which is just like.
Hey, you've got to pay all those child stars who are children of your other stars, Sam.
Yeah, I know. They've all got SAG cards.
I'm not going to do it again. I nearly did it again.
Yeah. So I think clearly we know nothing, because this is just everyone loved this. And
as usual, a fucking public line up to have this slop shoveled down their throats, and obviously we're watching it, so we're no better than any of the rest of you. Don't worry about it. I give Disney Plus their subscription every month, like the fucking schmuck I am. But it does kind of fill you with dread about the creative bankruptcy of the movies that are not even just being made now, but the movies that are making money now.
Yeah, I think we just what we have to do is recede back into a time.
I think we should take a leaf out of Gore the billionaire butcher's job sort of outlook.
Yeah,
I
think he's got the right thing. But what we can do is carry on, is continue to reject watching these MCU movies. We haven't done many of them, and I think we even said we shouldn't do any of them. But I think
we talked about putting them all behind a paywall on Patreon, but it's quite heavily predicated on anyone ever wanting to give us money or indeed listen to the podcast.
Exactly.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah. We're not there yet, I don't think.
Please
to be able to
harass us on YouTube. I'm begging you.
Anything to boost those views, I think we need. And harass us enough, and we might actually watch some more MCU movies. You never know.
I'll kill myself.